The concept of games, strokes, and rackets will be discussed in more detail in future lectures. At this stage, only a brief intro will be given, with a discussion of where and how games relate to transactional analysis. According to British TA expert practitioner Dave Spenceley, a game is a series of complementary ulterior transactions followed by at least one of the players switching ego states, leading to a moment of confusion, followed by familiar feelings and thoughts that reinforce the player's life script. Here, there are several important concepts. The first is the requirement of complementary ulterior transactions. Of course, transactions refer to the dynamics that is contained in people's interactions. According to TA, it is by changing the negative and dysfunctional interactions that emotional problems are solved. As such, transactions are the flow of communication, especially unspoken and sometimes subconscious psychological motivations that accompany the overt or explicit interaction. Complementary points to the fact that transactions that are part of games are parallel as the assumed ego states of the players align in a way that it can be sustained. The concept is illustrated in the following example. It is also important to note that the transactions are typically intentionally hidden or ulterior to consciously or subconsciously deceive the other person into acting in a certain way. There is always a gain or payoff at stake for the players that are aligned with their life script, thereby reinforcing it each time the game is played out. For example, payoff can be earning sympathy, satisfaction, vindication, or superiority. At some point, usually towards the end of the game, players switch ego states. That always involve parent and child states, compared to the adult state that is conscious game playing is mostly outside of our awareness. In games, roles are assumed by each player at any given time, and these can change throughout. As mentioned, the roles are associated with parent and child ego states and follow a complementary pattern. There are three basic roles, namely the victim, persecutor, and rescuer. Victims are people who, one, provoke others to put them down, use them, or hurt them. Two, send helpless messages. Three, conveniently forget. And four, often act confused. Quote, unquote, you can make me feel bad or good. Persecutors, one, make unrealistic rules. Two, enforce rules in harsh, inappropriate, and inflexible ways. And three, bully perceivably weaker people rather than engaging their peers. Quote unquote, I can make you feel bad. Rescuers are people who, one, offer helplessness to keep others dependent on them. Two, may not even have a real desire to help others. And three, work to maintain the victim role in others so that they can continue as a rescuer. I can make you feel good, quote unquote. The Karpman drama triangle. This psychological and social model of human interaction by the way of roles, often referred to as the Karpman drama triangle. In a game, the players start from their familiar favored positional role, but the game completes when one of the players switch roles. According to a transactional analyst, Claude Steiner, the victim is not really as helpless as he or she feels. The rescuer is not really helping, and the persecutor does not really have a valid complaint. The covert purpose for each player and the reason the situation endures is that each gets unspoken and often unconscious psychological wishes or needs met in a manner they feel justified, without having to consider or acknowledge the real or potential broader dysfunction or harm done in the situation as a whole. As such, each player is acting upon their own selfish needs rather than acting in a genuinely responsible or altruistic manner that can be associated with the adult ego state. Eric Berne, 64, pointed out that in transactional analysis, the drama triangle is sometimes referred to in the context of mind games, the unconscious games played by innocent people. Examples will be explained in later lectures. For example, in brevity, include, why don't you? Yes, but. If it weren't for you, why does this always happen to me? See what you made me do. You got me into this. Look how hard I've tried. I'm only trying to help you out. And let you and him fight. Oftentimes, the relationships are codependent, which can be sustained for at least a while until someone's needs are not adequately met and they shift position. A cycle of abuse or addiction is possible when repeats and reinforcement of each repetition. So what we'll do is we're going to have some practical examples. We're going to discuss some practical examples on life positions and stabilization of ego states shortly. Before we do, any questions, comments, or otherwise?